child is different, but every child can learn.
Is it possible for kids to get the education they need without attending a physical school? Johannes Ziegler has dedicated decades of his life to answer this question. As the co-founder and CEO of Mia Plaza, which includes Miacademy and MiaPrep, him and his team have created a interactive platform where kids can learn in a way that suits them as an individual.
How do we sort out this history, unravel the mysteries? What are the tools and how do they illustrate? History's course. To find out, I need some sources. I need reliable sources. How do I find them? How do I know they're reliable? How do I sort out the bias? Let me tell you all the kinds.
Mia Plaza schools focus on individualized learning and strength-based education, letting students focus on subjects that they're really good at and are particularly passionate about.
Meet the new Miacademy. On this site, your child will want to learn. Miacademy has hundreds of learning videos and learning games to go along with them. From beginning reading and math all the way through algebra and literature. Just let your child engage with Miacademy.
These schools aim to prepare students for a future that may not yet even exist by personalizing their learning experience.
Miacademy rewards learning with games in which your child can be creative. As the parent, you set the priorities. You go about your daily life while your child is learning. You can see what progress they've made and where they need help.
As a parent with kids in traditional education, I've always been curious about the pros and cons of homeschooling. If you're curious about virtual education, I think you'll find this episode particularly interesting. You'll learn how Miacademy and MiaPrep are helping kids prepare for the future in a way that works for them no matter how they prefer to learn.
Most of the time should be spent in areas where students are strong and have a passion and enjoy it. It's the social proof. Like everybody can claim anything. That's like not a differentiator. But not everybody can get hundreds of users chime in and say, yes, my daughter really has had a wonderful experience and it was life-changing. We meet kids where they are, which is online, which is interacting with each other, which is gaming, and say, this is where you are, and we meet you here, and we can now together go on a path where you actually also learn something that's important for you. Entrepreneurial spirit and creativity, that is quite amazing. Like kids pull off things where they create some artwork that are just mind-boggling. For the longest time, we were not that successful. We're just scraping by and had to be very creative in how to keep the lights on for the company. Sticking through that and then now seeing the growth and the impact, seeing this come to fruition was probably the biggest impact that in my life. If you want parents to actually pay for a program for their kids that is educational, it better be a solid, full-scale, all-in-one program. We're having a massive impact on the lives of a lot of kids. We get a lot of testimonials from parents. It's more than 1,000 comments. Many of those comments are how much has this helped them? What a difference it has made in their lives.
What does Mia Plaza mean to you?
To me personally, it is the opportunity to work with an amazing team that we've built over the last 2 decades to address a massive problem. And the problem that education is not working for many students. Worldwide, definitely in the US, which is at the heart of the homeschooling movement, where parents say, this is not working, we need to do something different, we need to do it ourselves. And Mia Plaza really is addressing this issue in a new way, and I think in a very effective way. So we have been growing a lot recently, and that's at the heart of it. Yeah,
that makes sense. Now, I read also that you have 2 platforms. You have the K-8 curriculum platform, which is Miacademy, and you have the high school platform, which is MiaPrep. Is that right?
That is right. We actually even have more. On the high school side, we also have an actual online school.
Mm-hmm.
which means that we give the diploma, we have teachers, we have daily office hours, the teachers create the essays and the projects, we have academic advisors, we have clubs, we have everything. And actually, in fact, just before we started our call, I was preparing my first graduation speech, which just started it less than 2 years ago. And then there's like, that's why we don't really have any substantial number of graduates, but there's one graduate already who finished through our program, and
Nice.
that's going to be tomorrow. So that is another exciting project where we take a little more ownership, because we take a more ownership in areas that usually the parents would take care of when it comes to homeschool.
That makes sense.
We are accredited. We are a real online high school.
Nice. So I've got two kids. I've got a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. If they wanted to learn with Miacademy or MiaPrep, how would they go about that?
So if they wanted to learn with it, assuming again as a homeschool program,
Yeah.
you as a parent would, or your wife would sign them up. We always have to have a parent involved. The parent is our point of contact.
Yeah.
And they will then be offered, or the parent will be offered, a set of courses that are adjusted to their grade range. The parent can decide when to take those courses, starting date, end date. And then every day the child will see what is the program for the day for each subject that has been chosen. Now that sounds pretty conventional, and so far it is, but then there are a few things that are different. One thing that's different is that even if you're doing it as a homeschooler, like not the online high school, you can actually interact with other students. We're pretty much the only company who dares to do that, because it has a lot of complications. It has a lot of legal requirements. We're certified by a third party that we're complying with the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. We have software that is checking everything that kids write, and then before it's published, there is always a human who also checks it. So an elaborate moderation team, and with that, kids can interact, so they are not those lonely kids sitting at home in front of a laptop. While they sit in front of a laptop, probably they can either socialize if they choose to, just freely, or they can interact in ways that are more of kind of a life lesson, business simulation. They can create things, they can upload videos, they can sell virtual goods, they can write newspaper articles. If they wrote an article, they can even sell advertising space in the article, that there's a bidding system where others can bid for it. So they really interact in a way that is a lot more than just going through your math tables or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. So you guys are online, but you also mentioned the fact that the homeschooling movement is particularly prominent in the US. Is it like most of your pupils are US based, or is it also global?
So we have people all over the world, but it is English based. So it has to be somebody whose English is good enough to use the program.
Yeah.
The vast majority of students are in the US. And that is because the US is certainly leading when it comes to the homeschooling movement. There are a few other countries that also have a substantial number, but the US is by far the biggest. And I think it's a combination of this tradition of freedom, where the ideology is parents have the right to do whatever they think is best for their children. Very different, for example, from Germany, where this is quite illegal. So we don't have customers here. We're not advertising Germany. So
I didn't actually realize it was illegal in Germany.
Yes. So people can go to prison if they would try to do that. So it's not legal everywhere. The US is on the other end of the spectrum, where it's not only legal, it is socially accepted, supported. There are entire movements like the parent choice movement that are political movements that give parents funding, government
Yeah.
funding that they can also use to buy homeschooling materials.
Yeah.
So it is a big deal in the United States.
No, for sure. One of my friends, they live in an RV, travel around, spend it maybe as long as a year or two in a certain place. But for them, that mobility is very important to them, and they educate their kids online in much the same way that MiaPrep and Mia Academy seems to offer.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons, like the multiple reasons why parents would choose to homeschool or to do online learning, and
Mm,
having the ability to travel
yeah,
either for professional reasons or just to explore the world
yeah.
is one of those reasons. Yes.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, how did Mia Plaza start, and what did it take to get to where you are today?
So it was quite a long journey. We started 2 decades ago. And
Mm,
initially, we weren't even an educational platform. We're actually one of the many social networking platforms that sprung
mm,
up. And the movement, the development we went through was we did notice that school children actually were active in our platform.
mm,
And we realized that Facebook was really dominating the place for general purpose networking. So we said, we do something for school children, but also something where they can actually learn. So it
mm,
started as an entertainment platform where there was some learning, some entertainment, some interaction. And the journey was then pretty long. They said, as it turned out, the number of parents who actually are willing to pay for this kind of an entertainment, safe interaction platform is limited.
okay.
And only when we started to really go full blast into education, where we hired a large number of teachers, developed more and more educational content, that is when the platform really started to take off, because now people had the best of both worlds. It is and now they have it is an education platform with a lot of advantages over other platforms,
Yeah.
plus the social aspect, which is
Mm,
especially what kids love and what keeps them on the platform too.
interesting. So, when people are using your platform, are they also going to apps such as Facebook, or is everything happening within the website?
Everything is within the website. That is actually one of those pieces to be compliant with the children's privacy laws that are
That
pretty
makes
strict in the US, actually. So people sometimes think the US is the Wild West where there are no regulations. That's not true.
mm,
Certainly not true when it comes to children online. It is very, very strict regulations. One of them is that you don't pull kids out of that site. Everything is on the site.
yeah.
And yes, so that's the safety aspect, because the moment young children leave the platform, you have no control what they're going to encounter.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That's good to hear. Okay, great. So we've got a section we call deep dive. I'll just do a little introductory sound to that. What's the most important thing to you about Mia Plaza?
Yeah, the most important thing about Mia Plaza is that we're having a massive impact on the lives of a lot of kids. And
Hmm.
we see that because we are interacting in many ways with our users. Like, one is they can socialize and we read everything. So we know from that. Uh,
Yeah.
we interact with parents. We get a lot of testimonials from parents. Now, it's pretty amazing. Like, for example, we advertise on Facebook some of the posts, and we get in on many of those ads more than 1,000 comments,
Hmm.
which is mostly from parents who are actually using the site. And many of those comments are, how much has this helped them?
Mm.
What a difference has made in their lives.
Yeah.
And uh, I do value education myself, and my wife and I, we have 5 kids, and we went through various educational paths with our children.
Mhm.
Everybody had a little bit of a different journey. So
Yeah.
I know that this is super important. This is something that can set up children for success or for failure in
Yeah.
life. And the fact that we can have such a positive impact, that is really what's behind Mia Plaza, what's driving it, and what's driving the whole team.
Interesting. Okay. What are you passionate about that Mia Plaza does?
So we were passionate about really trying to fulfill the promise that has been out there for decades of individualized learning.
Yeah.
And I don't think we are there 100%, but actually we're getting closer there every day, and that's still going to be a bit of a journey before we can really say we're fully there. But education really works very differently for different children. In some cases, it's very obvious because there are certain learning disabilities or particular talents where kids are different. But even for middle of the road kids, they learn in very different ways. They are easy to pick up things in one subject, and they can breeze through things quickly. They need more time in other subjects. They also need different ways of learning. Some are more visual learners, and some need more, for some, it's easy to learn by reading, by more repetition, like all kind of different styles. And we really want to make that possible so that every child can be successful, because whatever their need is, they can find it and they can have it met, so they can learn.
So what I'm hearing is that you try and offer a differentiated curriculum depending on an individual child's strengths and weaknesses.
That is correct, yes. And we are very far when it comes to differentiating in terms of what subjects you do, at what speed, at what time, how deep you go into the subject. We want to go much further, but there is still a lot of technology development and experimentation that is on the way, and will probably continue for many more years to go into different learning styles, into the question of what are minimum requirements in certain subjects for kids who are struggling, who may just be distracted if you try to teach everything and all, versus what are particularly interesting areas to go deeper for those who can go deeper. So this is the kind of differentiation we're working on to make much more, give many more options. So it's multidimensional, but we already are there in some dimensions.
So how close do you follow the traditional American curriculum?
So when we develop a new course, we use the standards of American school curricula that are put out there by the biggest states like New York, California, Texas, Florida, as guideposts, because we want students to be able to transition back and forth also into the public school system, or make sure when they go to university they have what they need. But in many areas we go deeper, or we offer more in terms of, for example, life skills than what is required in the curricula. And we also take the freedom to say not every single standard has to be met if it's really not something that is relevant for the kids as far as we see it. And it is another important thing. The question is, what do kids need to know in the future? What do they actually need to learn? And it's a very hard problem to have a good answer for that, but we have some indications.
You're right.
We know that a lot of obviously basic procedural skills or fact knowledge will be replaced by technology, but there are meta skills. There is exposure to ways of thinking that will become more important, especially now with AI becoming a bigger deal. And so we want to shift the learning more into that direction.
So this is okay. So we've toyed with the idea of homeschooling our kids. Right now we're in the UK. We have thoughts of living in Portugal. We've lived in Portugal in the past. But if we were to make that move back to Portugal, we would potentially homeschool the kids. As a former high school teacher myself, I got out of teaching partly because I didn't believe in the curriculum. It seemed unfit for purpose. It seemed antiquated. It seemed that everybody was spinning their wheels, preparing for an exam, but not learning useful information. And it really, I was a hugely passionate teacher. I was one of the most engaged teachers you could probably hope to meet. But it didn't take very long. It took about 5 or 6 years for me to become dispirited and to disengage from the idea of being a teacher completely. So for my kids, what I want for them, and obviously there can be more things added to this list. It's not an exhaustive list, but what I would like for them, I want them to be able to, I want them to learn how to learn, so that when they confronted with new information, that they can process it and learn from it. I want them to be independent thinkers. I want them to be critical thinkers, so that when they're giving information, they're not just accepting it on face value. Independence, I probably mentioned that, but that's a big one. And to follow their passions, to dive deeper into, I don't know, if they're interested in art, then go down the art route. If they're interested in business, then go down the business route. And to leverage skills such as maths, science, geography, history, in a way that is meaningful to them and to the things that they are learning. Does any of that resonate with you? And how does Mia Plaza fit in with any of that, if at all?
Yeah, much of that actually resonates a lot. So we have this concept of strength-based learning. And what that means is that in a traditional system where students learn to the test, the most effective way of increasing the average test score is to see wherever students are struggling, and then spend the time there to get them from the 20th percentile to the 50th percentile or something like that, with a lot of effort. So that will have a big impact on the test score. While if a student is already good and already the 90th percentile, it won't impact the test score much if you invest in that. And that leads to this unfortunate and very frustrating experience that most of the time is spent working on weaknesses and working in areas that are not very fulfilling and not very motivating for students. That's striking. And we believe it should be the other way around. The most of the time should be spent in areas where students are strong and have a passion and enjoy it. And that's why we also have this idea and concept of saying, if you're not really into a subject, we want to figure out for you what is really the core, what are the handful of things you really should understand in order to move on, but not like learn every single trick in Algebra 2 about how to work with certain terms and equations that you will definitely never ever need in your life again. So that resonates a lot. And this also the question of critical thinking, independent thinking. We believe that most people underestimate what will happen in 5 to 10 years with artificial intelligence. I see that the note taker here is an AI, and it will be a lot more than just that in the foreseeable future. And with that, the ability to understand what is behind a certain piece of information that I get, where does it come from, who trained, who programmed the AI on what, and this kind of critical thinking, it becomes even more important compared to what is already now. So this is huge. We have been following the world of AI for a long time, because my oldest son, who also used to work for the company but now is working in the AI industry, he's involved in the industry, and we have looked at early prototypes for many years and started seeing the trend, the writing on the wall of what's going to happen. And
Okay.
believe this is going to be very big, and means that you have to learn how to live in this world.
Yeah.
Understand
Well,
what
the
you're
world that's going to be as well, right? Prepare
Yes.
for the world of the future, not the world of
Yes. With this world, I mean the world of AI of the future. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the world you need to be prepared for.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me because when I was a kid, I'm 49. When I was at the early years of high school, I believe, if memory serves me well, they brought computers into the school for the first time, into the high school. So, no one had really seen much of a computer at that point, and they certainly had never been in high schools in my city or country until then. I then, many years later, became an internet marketer. So none of my teachers could have predicted the internet, could have predicted maybe even 5 years prior or 10 years prior computers. And nobody could have said to me, you know what, you'd make a really good internet marketer. Because none of those things were even a thing, right?
Yep.
So little did they know it, and little did I know it. Everything I was doing was preparing myself for a career that didn't exist while I was in school.
It's actually very interesting. I typically give the very same speech. Like, my job would have been totally impossible at the time when I was in school or into university, for that matter, because it's also all totally internet based. And it is internet based. It's totally globalized in terms of where we source the talent. It's all around the world, and none of that would have been thinkable or imaginable when I was going to school. So the question is now, so why was it valuable what I learned at school? And what was valuable? And I think what was valuable was this exposure to different ways of thinking, to schools of thought, to the different cultures, which is now super important. We're dealing, of course, in our audience with people who have very different norms and values.
Yeah.
So this exposure, this understanding, the understanding of philosophy, the understanding of international history and where different cultures are coming from, this is now extremely valuable for me. But the actual job was far away and was not imaginable when I was going to school.
That makes a lot of sense. So how do you measure success for Mia Plaza?
So success, I measure in how many students we can impact in a positive way. Like, first of all, obviously, if there's no positive impact, then it doesn't matter how many. But so how many students really have a better educational experience, are set up more successful to be
how are you measuring that? Because are you measuring that just based off grades, or is it something more intangible?
So it's like the quantity we can easily measure in the sense of how many users we have, and there we are growing very fast and have been growing over the last many years. In terms of the impact, we look at what students write to us, and also beyond, like the mere assessments where we just check if they have understood the content. We have, specifically in the high school, those more extended projects that students do, where we can actually see what have they really learned, how far have we come in really teaching this cohort of students. Sometimes it's sobering. Sometimes we realize that, well, maybe not quite there yet. Then we take action to change how we teach, or in many cases, actually revise the material. Like, we had an algebra course in our first year of our high school, and we did the analysis that, well, looks like students are really not learning the way we thought they would be learning. So we put all the resources we had on revising the course and having a new course available for the next year, and it's clearly better. So we get feedback in terms of how successful we are.
That's cool. How does the way that Mia Plaza approaches marketing and sales differ from when you started the business?
The main difference is that for us now, social media really is the name of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why this works for us so well, and probably better than for most other companies, is that by now we have so many users, so many members.
Mm.
Whenever there is engagement on social media, which we can, of course, trigger by having sponsored posts,
Yes.
there are always actual users chiming in. And that is really what matters, the social proof. Like everybody
Yeah.
can claim anything.
Yeah.
That's like not a differentiator. But not everybody can get hundreds of users chime in and say, yes, my daughter really has had a wonderful experience and it was life-changing and so on.
Mm.
So that's what we're doing now. And when we started, frankly, that was not an option. There
Yeah.
was not much of social media going on.
I understand. That makes a lot of sense to me. I can see that. So I can imagine there's a scenario where you might advertise the school, and your own learners, by that I probably mean the parents,
Yes, yes.
are writing comments in the ads saying how much of a great experience they've had. Is that correct?
That is correct. In many cases, they respond to questions. Like people can ask questions like, my child is diagnosed with ADHD. Will it work for my child? And then another parent will chime in and say, yes, it was the same in my case, and it works wonderfully. Those kind of interactions, yes, that's really what helps, and that's why for us, social media is more successful than, for example, classical search engine optimization or search marketing or a lot of other things where there's no interaction and then no social proof, because then they will just come across yet another website that claims that they have a good program, and there are many others who have the same claim. So it's really it's really the social proof that makes a difference.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what are the things that people throw at you? So let's say you guys are running an ad, or you've put a post on social media, and you've always I'm going to say haters. You've always got haters. You've always got doubters. You've always got skeptics. What are they throwing at you? As in, you guys are X, you guys are Y, you can't do Z or Z. What's coming at you? What's being thrown at you?
There are a lot of different things. Number one, there are, of course, people who have had a bad experience being homeschooled when they grew up, not on our side, because our side probably wasn't even around when they were homeschooled, but who then will vent their frustration about how bad homeschooling can be. On the side. And basically what we do is when we see it and we can reply, we just have empathy and say, well, we're very sorry I've had this experience. But of course, it's not representative of every experience, and we hope that it's different. So this would be a typical one. We also have something special, actually. When we started initially, I had mentioned that we noticed that students were active on our social media site initially. Those students happen to be all girls. So we start actually with a girls only platform.
Yeah.
We still have this. It's now a smaller part of the business. And we also then, in response to that, also created a boys only platform. What is interesting is that for some children, that actually works very well.
Yeah.
For you, this may not be so weird because in the UK, there are actually a bunch of schools.
Yes, I mean, it's not the majority, but we have boys, girls, and boys schools and girls schools, like uniquely one or the other.
Yeah. So in the US, that's more rare, and then there are also haters who say, "Are you sexist? Are you trying to differentiate? And what do you want to create traditional gender roles?" We definitely don't. We just notice that there is a subset of kids for which is actually better, a more safe environment to be in a single gender environment. And that's also something that is often misunderstood. It is interpreted as being like ultra conservative or something like that, and that's like totally not what's behind that. But we're not giving up those sides, because there are children for whom this is really, really valuable.
Yeah, well, maybe it is being English British that gives me that perspective, because I do know that there are certain kids for whom being in a single sex school is the absolute best thing for them. I couldn't give you an actual reason as to why. In many cases, it's kind of like, I don't know, what's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander, you know. It's just certain kids. It's what we were talking about before about differentiation, right? Each kid learns in its own way, and each kid, and by extension, I would say human, has their own ideal environment.
Yes, yes, and we do see some different behaviors on the sites, and I think that's fine. They have the same functionality, so no gender differentiation when it comes to content or functionality or anything like that.
Yeah. So a girl, for example, if you think about the kind of stereotypical stuff, a girl is learning all of the things that a boy would be learning.
Yes, so exactly, it's exactly the same curriculum. So they're learning the same thing. Right. So there's no differentiation. But we do notice that like girls like to be more socially active actually on those sites. They chat more and that just feels safer and a little further removed from any anybody who might bully them. Although girls can actually be bullies too, so no question about that. Which is actually another value proposition, and I think this is something that what we can provide, something that people maybe underestimate. When you think about social networking, there is a lot of negative, like hate speech problem, bullying going on that even young kids are exposed to. And the reason why that is the case is because pretty much every single social networking platform, be it Instagram or Snapchat or anything that's out there, has the clear incentive of driving engagement. It's really what's at the end driving revenues.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so all kind of contentious speech, including hate speech, everything that stirs emotion is actually driving traffic. Yes. And so that means that the algorithms automatically will push these posts. And that leads to massive problems, actually. This could be, many people believe, and I think it's not unreasonable to believe that this is the reason why the share of especially young girls with mental health problems has gone up a lot. So this is like a serious problem. This is not like a minor issue.
Yeah.
In our case, we are not paid by traffic. We have no incentive. Like technically, we have the opposite incentive, but we are not going for that. Technically, it costs us money because we have to moderate it and pay somebody to moderate it. So we, of course, we want to have engagement. But we're not driving traffic for the traffic's sake. And quite the contrary, we are helping by giving the feedback to students. We say, look, this was not a friendly post. You should not do that. Not like teaching kids to not engage in negative bullying or the type of behavior. So they can learn. Because we will send them the feedback. We will say, "This you wrote this. We're not going to let this go through, and here's the reason." And this is teaching them. And I hope that some of this will be taken over into the real world. So it's a very, very different experience in terms of the tone on the side.
That sounds really good. So, Johannes, where did you grow up, and how did that shape who you are today?
I actually grew up in Germany, which is also where I'm right now, but I do live in California. And I'm German and Swiss. My mother was Swiss. And I think the shaping part was that I moved to the US based on first studies and then business opportunities. I had also studied in China and worked in China for a bit over a year in total. Traveled a lot, and I think the fact that I have seen different cultures and also different education systems. Like
Yeah.
I've studied on 3 different continents and universities. I think this has helped a lot. It
Mm.
helped me mostly not to take things for granted, because what one system takes for granted and thinks is absolutely essential, and this is how you do things, is not at all what others do. And so it helped me to step back and say, okay, they're very, very different approaches, and also very different outcomes. So this is really a field where you can experiment, where you can take the best from different systems, and also just accept the fact that there are different cultures and different values, and you don't want to take one for granted.
Yeah, well, as someone who's lived in many places, learned several languages, that resonates with me. Every country I've lived in, every language I've learned has informed me and changed me, and just given me that different perspective on things. You kind of assume the where you come from and the way people think and the way that you were brought up maybe to think is kind of the way to see life. But then you go to somewhere, I mean, China is a perfect example where everything's so massively different. So yeah, where you go, okay, well, maybe there is a completely different way of seeing things here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that in itself is something that I'm trying to also give to our students. So we want to make sure we bring different perspectives into our curriculum, expose them to different cultures and worldviews, because it is, number one, enriching personally, but it's also important to live in today's and tomorrow's world, to understand those different cultures and backgrounds and ways of thinking.
Makes sense. So, what was the most significant turning point in your life?
In my life, wow, that's a big one. One could always say, like, finding the right spouse was probably the most important decision. Who, but we also had studied on 3 different continents, and is very much with me in this adventure, and also supports our company now as a pedagogy manager. I would say the decision to stick with Mia Plaza, even for the longest time, we were not that successful. Like in our years as entertainment platform, we did not generate a ton of revenues, and so we were just scraping by and had to be very creative in how to keep the lights on for the company. But I still did see a light at the end of the tunnel, and sometimes, of course, it's delusional. Sometimes those lights never became real, but eventually it did. And sticking through that, and then now seeing the growth and the impact. And when talking about impact, it's not only impact on the students, although that's number one. This is where the volume is. It's also impact on those by now about 200 people who work in our company.
Okay.
Who also have a meaningful mission that they can now pursue, and a great team to work with, and that is also wonderful. So this is a long-winded way of saying, seeing this come to fruition was probably the biggest impact that in my life, or the biggest factor that determined my life.
That's very cool, because I love these success stories, because a big part of business success is just sticking to it, like never giving up, and but reiterating and evolving and figuring out how to find that product market fit. Is the thing you're offering the thing that people want, the thing they need, the thing they'll pay for, the thing they'll value? If it isn't, how can we change it so it is? It's integral to success, right?
It absolutely is. And of course, the challenge is sometimes you never figure it out. And I think there's something that people have to come to grips with when they start a business, that there is no such thing as a guarantee. To some degree, we are a business that failed multiple times. Like, our initial value propositions didn't catch on,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually did. Was there any guarantee that we will get to this eventually?
Never.
No. And so uh,
But I'm
so
guessing you had good.
it's kind of a hard advice to give, like just stick it out, because who knows if it will work. But that's, at the end of the day, it's a mixture between what's the alternative? Like,
Mm-hmm.
can you actually stick it out? Can you, what else could you do?
Mm.
And then this realism, do we really see a value proposition here that is realistic, that
Yeah.
will work eventually?
Mm.
And that's something that we started seeing several years ago.
Do you think that you had to catch up to the world, or did the world have to catch up to you and your vision?
That's actually a great question. I think it's both.
Mm.
And if really the growth we experience is only possible because it is both. So to some degree, we had to catch up to the reality that if you want parents to actually pay for a program for their kids
Mm.
that is educational, it better be a solid, full scale, all in one program, because
Yeah.
that's what a real value, that's a real value for parents as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
some supplemental learning. And that's something we had to learn and to change. But
Mm.
then the world has woken up to our value proposition in many ways. The whole homeschooling movement has gained enormous speed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's much bigger now than like 10 years ago. Obviously, COVID gave it a big boost.
Yeah.
Already started growing prior to COVID, so it's not just a
Sure.
single event effect, and it keeps growing. So the world is also catching up to this idea that you can learn online. Individualized learning is super valuable, and
Mm-hmm.
learning is possible for children who may not flourish in a traditional school environment. That's, I think, something that was not so commonly accepted just 10 years ago compared to now.
That makes sense to me. Now, I know you guys have the majority of your learners in the US, but is there a country outside of the US where you're seeing significant growth, even if it's only a small part of the company?
Um, you know what? This is a really great question. I couldn't tell you exactly what the numbers are. Like, we anecdotally, I hear from members in Australia.
Mm.
So maybe that's more than proportionate growth.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly also, of course, a matter of where you really push for growth, and that's
Sure.
currently 100% focused on the US.
Makes sense.
And we think, having said that, actually, that in the long run, internationally, we will become much stronger in two ways.
Mm.
Number one, through our online high school,
Yeah.
where there's a lot of families in the world who would love to have an accredited US high school,
Okay.
and we can offer that,
Yeah.
and offer that in a comparatively affordable and very professional way.
Yeah.
So that is something where we see a lot of growth potential. And then on the other side, when it comes to languages, I believe that AI will make a simultaneous translation or whatever form of translation
Mm.
better and cheaper and easier,
Sure.
so that a lot of our content will probably be available several years down the road in other languages too.
I like it. What's something surprising you've learned about the children who learn with Mia Plaza?
Good question. What is really surprising? Um, for me, it is really this entrepreneurial spirit and creativity that
Mm.
is quite amazing. Like, kids pull off things where they create some artwork with our relatively rudimentary design tools that we offer them on our site that
Mm.
are just mind-boggling. Um, and they create initiatives like, for example, kids came together to vote on what they think the most important improvements on our website should be.
Mm-hmm.
They came up with a consolidated list that a lot of kids agreed on, and then they wrote it to us and say, "Hey, here here is something we would like to see improved.
Yeah.
And we all agree on that.
Nice.
And nobody asked for that. So this was just out of the blue.
It's spontaneous.
I'm very positive. Like there's always the sense that, wow, the generation of today, they're always in their screens, and they're so passive and so on. I don't really see that. So kids are pretty creative and active on our side.
I like it. I like it. So is it fair to say that, kids might be stereotyped as being passive or more focused on their screens, but maybe it's a better question to ask, how can we engage the kids of today in a way that's meaningful to them?
Yeah, basically meet the kids where they are. A lot of kids spend a ton of time not only on screens in general, on social media and so on, but also online gaming, for example. So we want to learn from what is actually driving engagement and also learning in the game environment, learn from all that. So we meet kids where they are, which is online, which is interacting with others, which is gaming, and say, this is where you are, and we meet you here, and we can now together go on a path where you actually also learn something that's important for you.
Makes sense. We've got a final section that we call Love Hate. I'll just play a little introductory jingle.
I love you.
I hate you so much!
This is where you get to decide whatever makes you angry, or what do you love about either e-learning or homeschooling.
Okay, so what I hate or makes me excited.
You decide, hate or love. You can go in either direction.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start for once with a negative one. So what I hate is when parents are very narrow-minded and really try to push their very, very narrow and sometimes extreme ideology on their kids. For example, use this as a reason why they don't want to use our program anymore, because they have a very specific worldview. So I hate it not because we're losing a handful of customers, actually not that many, but I'm thinking about those kids. Wow, they're really limited in what they can experience. So I hate that.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Then what I love is that there are always new opportunities, like new technology coming out. So things that wouldn't be possible last year, all of a sudden it's possible.
Yeah.
And I totally love that. It's not there's no such thing as an end game, because the game always changes. There are always new rules, new opportunities.
Yeah.
I totally love that.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. So you mentioned AI. Do you have any firm, concrete plans to leverage AI, or is it evolving as the technology evolves?
Yeah, we do work on integrating AI in ways where, as a first step, we use it as a tool for both content creators and teachers. Like content creators would be those who create our courses.
Yeah.
And what we noticed is, like, AI absolutely doesn't replace the expertise of our teachers, actually the other way around. Our teachers have to be very, very good in order to evaluate if whatever AI gives them actually makes sense and is correct, and it's helpful.
Yeah.
But it is a productivity tool where, if you want to have a quick idea on how to introduce a subject, if you want to have an idea for an outline, or check for completion, or check for inclusiveness, check for this and that, AI can do it in a few seconds. And that is super, super helpful. We're also using AI to help our teachers grade the essays, and in the future also other topics in our other subjects in our online high school.
Yeah.
This is something that eventually will also be available on the site for all students, where there can be really meaningful feedback on not only what was right and wrong, but also how to improve, what to work on with AI.
Very good.
There were many other areas that they were thinking about, but these are like the specific ones that.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. What's the best or worst advice you got about starting a business?
Yeah, okay. Let's see. What was the best or the worst? I think the worst advice was when somebody's actually supposedly fairly business savvy, um, said that we don't think parents will ever buy this.
Mm,
And I think it was because at that moment this product wasn't out there, and he was just extrapolating from what's in the market. So
mm,
basically, bad advice, the worst advice I think I got was to look at the current market of where money is spent today
mm-hmm.
and then conclude that because nobody or few people are spending money on this thing, it's a
Yeah,
bad idea. So
yeah.
that was bad advice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. What's the most difficult or rewarding part about running a business?
I would say both actually has to do with people.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most difficult part is probably when you work with team members, especially now we have this situation again and again where you work with team members who started when we were much smaller. Our
Mm-hmm.
aspiration level, for example, for what a good lesson looks like,
Mm,
much lower. We have now developed our aspirations and our goals, um, or the people that had to be managed were fewer.
mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden, the task has changed a lot, and all people are not in the right position anymore, and they can't deal with it, they can handle it, and
Mm,
so figuring out a way to find another place, or if there is no other place and they just can't do it anymore, then having to let them go. I think that's the hardest. That's the
mm.
hardest part overall in the business. Yeah.
Makes sense. What's your favorite quote?
Oh, favorite quote. Um, it's funny. I'm not one of those who actually have the quotes
To
open
hand.
my desk and look at them.
Uh-huh.
So so certainly I can't say anything spontaneously as being
That's
my
okay.
favorite quote. I would have to think a little bit.
Or a motto that you live by.
Pardon? A motto that, yeah, I think a motto is for me that if I lead with integrity, I can sleep well. So
Nice.
I do what I can, and more often than not, I fail. But that's okay. I tried, and I can still sleep well.
All right. That sounds like a true entrepreneur. Final question. What question should I have asked you?
You've already asked so many questions, so now that's um, not easy to answer. What is missing? Um, Maybe um, it probably could have been interesting to talk about like what our like where we find
Sorry?
what our team looks like, where we find people.
Please tell us.
Yeah. So we are uh, a, a very attractive employer. We actually get more than 100,000 applicants every year who want to work for us.
Hmm.
We have a very sizable, for the size of our company, HR function and tools
Hmm.
and processes to weed through the applicants.
Yeah.
We hire for content creation in the US or maybe Canada, and for software development, product management, UX worldwide. So we
Okay.
have people across the globe.
Yeah.
We network, for example, into areas where we know there are winners of software competitions, and then we try to
Hmm.
win them over with our vision.
Nice.
So we really try to uh, be creative in finding the best talent wherever the talent is. In
Brilliant. Well, that's the advantage of being online as well, right?
That is true. That is true. Like the most straightforward reason why we get so many applicants is because we give the option of 100% remote work,
Mm-hmm.
and and still have a team and still have a mission and have a lot of benefits, like even literal benefits, like in like healthcare and so on, which in the US, unfortunately, is not even the norm. So we offer the benefits of a little bit more established company with a team, but also the full flexibility of remote work and also a fairly flexible schedule. Basically, you only have to be at certain meetings or hit certain deadlines. But other than that, there's a huge amount of flexibility, and we found that very valuable to just find the best people out there wherever they are.
Yeah, well, that as somebody who works remotely and has a remote team and have, we've got clients and growth partners all around the globe, that resonates with me massively. You're speaking my language there. So, just to round things up, how can people find you and Mia Plaza?
Yeah, a good way is always LinkedIn, where we post like our jobs. We post some insights about the homeschooling market, homeschooling industry. We also are working on having additional sites and blogs and so on. But I think for now that's always a good place, and everything else will also be linked from there. Of course, for parents, they can always go to Miacademy, Miacademy.co, or just Google Miacademy. It's going to come up, and everything is going to be linked from there too.
Very good. I'll put them in the show notes.
Yeah.
Johannes, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, too. I enjoyed it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. If you have an e-learning business, you're a leader of an e-learning business that you're looking to get to the next level, increase sales, that kind of thing, feel free to reach out. I'll put a link to my LinkedIn beneath this video, and you can get me there. Have a great day.